everybody, welcome to Inside Quest. We are the superhero university for your brain. Our goal really is to bring on amazing people that can help you supercharge your mind. And if you're looking to become the intellectual Incredible Hulk, there's really no better guest than the man joining us today. Like any true superhero, today's guest has had a super powerful origin story. After a really serious childhood accident left him with brain trauma and a learning disability, he realized he had a choice: accept his fate or do something about it and change it. And like any good superhero, he decided he was going to take action and change it. Realizing that we're all taught what to learn, but none of us are really taught how to learn, he made it his personal mission to develop a revolutionary learning system that would not only rescue him from his own limitations, but also become the foundational platform anyone could use to leverage and level up in life. So tearing through every tome he could get his grubby little mitts on, digesting it and self-experimenting, he rapidly learned what worked and what didn't, refined it, polished it, and turned it into a system that let him push his skills not just back to normal, but into the realm of the truly superhuman. Hungry to pay that forward and teach others, he skyrocketed to popularity as a brain coach for some of the world's most influential people, and he did it by delivering staggering results. And it's delivering results that's the key. Today, he's the founder of Kwik Learning and is arguably one of the most widely recognized experts in brain performance and optimization, accelerated learning, speed reading, and memory improvement. Kwik Learning is used by students in over 100 countries, and his hyper-effective brain enhancement techniques have been used by Virgin, Nike, Zappos, GE, and SpaceX, seriously, just to name a few. His techniques have even been sought out by Harvard University and Singularity University, and he's trained or shared the stage with some luminary global leaders, including Elon Musk, Sir Richard Branson, and the Dalai Lama himself. Please help me in welcoming the man best-selling author Steven Kotler calls a superhero whose superpower is learning itself, one of the world's quickest learners, Jim Kwik. What's up, dude? How you doing? So good to have you on the show, man. So, for those that don't know your absolute fascination with superheroes, tell us, what do you have at your house that people may find surprising?
Oh, so we're gonna geek out over this.
Yes, please.
I have a life-size Hulk, a 10-foot Hulk, actually, in our backyard, and so it's pretty intimidating. You can see it out from space, and
That's insane.
Also have an Iron Man and a real-life life-size Spider-Man.
Hanging on your wall,
Hanging
if I'm
on
not
the wall.
mistaken.
Yeah.
The first time I saw the picture of you with the Incredible Hulk, I thought, wow, I wonder where he found that. Like, I want to go there and get my picture taken too. Like, that's so cool. And you're like, yeah, it's at my house. I was like, okay, that's commitment. Like, some people say they're into comics and superheroes, and then other people have a life-size Hulk in their backyard. That's pretty crazy. What makes you so interested in superheroes?
I think that, we all grew up watching these characters on television and in the movies and everything. For me, it even goes deeper. With these learning challenges that I had, it took me longer to learn how to do things. For example, I didn't understand things that teachers would explain to me. They would have to explain 2 or 3 times in order for me to get it. I had really bad focus, really bad memory, and it actually took me 3 or 4 years longer to learn how to read. And I taught myself actually how to read late at night when my family thought I was sleeping by reading comic books. And something about the stories of superheroes brought learning to life for me, when I had these learning challenges. And the genesis of it really is the message of superheroes and all these superhero films is that one person can make a difference. It gives people hope and also real life help, and inspires people to live that better version of themselves. That version I call superhero you. It's like we're not waiting for Superman or Superwoman, it's like you are Superman, you are Superwoman, you are super teen, super child, and you just need to be given permission to unleash it.
It's interesting. When I was a kid, I was super into ninjas and superheroes. Like, seriously, when, let's say I dressed up maybe 12 times for Halloween in my entire life, like 5 of those times were as a ninja. Like, that was just my go-to. And ninjas and superheroes, because I had a super fixed mindset as a kid. Like, I believed I was the smartest I was ever going to be. I was either good at sports or not good at sports. I didn't think they were things that I could learn. And it was something about superheroes that made me feel like, at least as a fantasy, I could be more than I am now, right? Like, I could imagine myself as one of these, which in my mind were obviously just fake things that could never be. But my fascination with superheroes has stayed, and I'm as into comic books now, maybe more so, I think probably much more so. But I found that the reason that I'm so drawn to them has changed. So before, while it was an escape from a fixed mindset, it was an entryway into a pure fantasy world that made me feel better about myself, because at least as I was imagining it in that moment,
Right.
I was freed from my limitations. And then as I got older, I realized especially Batman was a tale of a superhero who didn't have powers,
Yeah.
but yet leveraged the power of the human mind to grow, develop, get better, enhance his physicality, enhance his mentality to the point where he could compete even with Superman. Do you find that your relationship with superheroes has changed over time, or?
It has. When you grow up with learning challenges, with I was the boy with the broken brain. You have struggles. You have private struggles. You have personal struggles and challenges. And I think in the beginning, comic books were ways to escape. Can you imagine a world of real life superheroes where everyone steps into that greater self that they're supposed to be, that they're destined to be, or they deserve to be? And I think over time, I noticed that superheroes are somebody who discovered and they developed their superpowers. And I think we could all do that also. We could discover that superpower could be a talent. It could be a strength. It could be a skill. It could be a unique ability, something that's what you have, that you're offering to the world. But just having a superpower doesn't make you a superhero. Right. You have to use that superpower for good, right? You have to use it to contribute to your community, to your family, to your customers, your clients. And that's a powerful thing, and it's inspiring too. I think a superhero has 3 traits, and I think we all have to commit to these 3 traits in order to be successful and also fulfilled. I'll make them 3 Gs. 3G is, the first one is growth, right? They have the growth mindset. They're dedicated to never-ending improvement, incremental improvement. The second G, I would say, is they have grit. Do you know what I mean? Being an entrepreneur, or people, whether you're a student, you're a parent, you're a professional, and an entertainer and an educator, you go through struggles. But through going through struggles, you gain strength, right? You'd like this. Sylvester Stallone invited me to watch this boxing match with Pacquiao and Mayweather.
Why am I not surprised?
And I'm sitting on the couch, and it's me, Stallone, and right next to him is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right. If somebody took a picture of that couch, they'd be like, "Who photoshopped that Asian guy in the picture?" But afterwards, after the fight, I was asking them these questions. Because I believe that genius leaves clues, and I wanted to find out. I asked them both, what does it take to be a champion like that, to be that elite, good, world class? And I remember what Arnold said to me. He said that those are the people who could push past the pain period. Push past the struggle. Just like when you mold your business, you mold your body, you mold your brain. People could do those extra sets or reps, to the point where they don't want to do it, but they push themselves to do it, and they get the benefit, because through that challenge they get their change. Through the struggles they get their strengths, if you will. And so I think grit, that perseverance, not giving up, is an important trait. So you have growth, grit, and I would say the third trait of a superhero or real life superheroes is giving. Right? Because that's really what it's all about. It's not about me, it's about we. And superheroes are they're the first ones off the bench, and they save the day, and they contribute in astonishing ways. And we all have that capacity, everyone who's watching this.
So one of the things I was pondering as I was doing the research on you is why are superheroes so lasting, right? So you get all throughout recorded history, as soon as people started telling stories, they started telling stories of the heroes. Yeah. They weren't always manifest as gods or having godlike abilities like they are now, but it was always somebody who I think follows your 3 Gs, which is really fascinating. You're putting that in place for me here in real time. And I never considered the last one, the giving. Now, I found in my own life, for sure, the thing that has become my North Star is helping other people, serving other people, doing something amazing for them. But when you say that, it helps me understand why I am so, they give me the chills, right? You read a good comic and it gives you the chills because the guy's the first off the bench, because the woman is really trying to do something amazing for her community, for somebody they care about, whatever. And when I think about, okay, then that's obviously just articulating something that's inside the human spirit, what is that thing? It's pretty interesting, you're right, because that is this, maybe not universal, but it's so close to universal. It's so innate to us to want to help clan, kin, like the people around us to do something positive is pretty powerful. And I think if people, so obviously the people watching the show, the people in the audience, one of the things they, I hope, are here for is not just the tasty snacks that we have outside, but that they're here for how can I take these lessons and apply them to my own life.
Right.
If like one person can avoid going through the just archetypal story arc of I start by chasing money, only to realize I make money and it's not fulfilling, right? And I come down to finally realize I don't care about money, I'm gonna pursue fulfillment with that third G of giving. And all of a sudden, by focusing on value creation and giving something to somebody else, the money actually comes, right? But to help people just get past that so that we can more quickly find ourselves in a world where people are embodying the super version of themselves would be pretty amazing. So thank you for clicking that puzzle piece together.
I mean, I think the hero's journey is in our DNA. Joseph Campbell's work, right?
Oh, yes.
The power of story and everything from Star Wars to these superhero films to one of our shared favorite, The Matrix.
Yes.
And it's very powerful when people are on that journey, and we find this amazing strength, and we find mentors along the way. That's why I love what you're doing, because you're taking this information that's life changing for individuals, and you're bringing it out to people who really need it. And so I see when I look at you, I see a big cape.
Thank you. Well, you certainly are no schlub yourself, my friend. The thing that's most impressive to me about what you're doing is you had every reason in the world to give up. And I think this is the way that you wear your cape, that you don't get nearly enough credit, at least in the way that you tell your own story. When we're kids, we all begin to build our self-image. Your self-image was that of the boy with the broken brain. So how do you take that? Like, it's coming at you every day. Every time you try to read something, you're slower than everybody else. You don't feel like you fit in. You're literally riding your bike around your town of Westchester, New York, looking for the actual school for the gifted from the X-Men because you want to run away from home. You guys got to dig into this man's story. It's absolutely incredible. Looking for that, wanting it to be real. How do you go from that, which is like this self-reinforcing spiral of negative thoughts, to where you are today? It's such an amazing switch of direction that I'm glad that I never had to do that when I was young.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has their own form, because we all have our own set of unique challenges and such. But at that tender age, it was 5 years old when I had that head trauma and the brain injury, and so it became certainly a liability. I didn't understand why I had to go through it. But with anything, it gives you perspective, because when you're like that, you become very introverted, very shy. You just start watching people and you start wondering, why is this person so popular? Why is this person doing so well? You start thinking it's unfair, and it could go negative momentum. And I was lucky enough to get into a college in freshman year is where it all just unraveled. I thought I could start fresh and really show the world, show my parents, show myself that I could really do it. But it just fell apart, and I just ended up not eating, not sleeping, not spending time with friends, not exercising, and I just lived in the library until that fateful night where I actually passed out from sheer exhaustion. I fell down a flight of stairs in the library. I hit my head again, and I woke up in the hospital 2 days later, and I thought I had died. And that was a really dark time. And so whether it was when I was 8 years old or 18 years old, it's a lifetime when every single day you're wondering why your brain is betraying you. And you just, it's not fair that you have to work 3 times harder than everybody else and still not do anywhere near as well. But in that hospital bed, I was down to 117 pounds, hooked up these IVs, and I just thought there has to be a better way. And that's when I realized that, the nurse came out with a mug of tea and had a picture of Albert Einstein, and it said this quote: "The same level of thinking that's created your problem won't solve your problem. The same level of thinking that's created your problem won't solve it." And it made me think, what's my problem? I was like, I'm a really slow learner. I was like, well, how do I think about it differently? It was like, maybe I could learn how to learn. And I picked up a course bulletin, I looked at all the classes for school, and they're all classes on what to learn. Math, history, science, Spanish, all important classes, but 0 classes on how to learn. How to think, how to be creative, how to solve problems, how to lead, how to listen, how to focus, concentrate, read faster, how to remember things. That's where I made the decision. That's where I'm going to make that my study. I'm going to make study my study. I wanted to solve this riddle, which even today, it's my obsession, is I want to understand how my brain works so I could work my brain. How does your memory work so you could work your memory? And I think nowadays it's so important because in this superhero mythos, the villain nowadays is overload. It's overwhelm. Like, people are with their technology. There's so much information coming at us. It feels like we're taking a sip of water out of a fire hose, and we're just not prepared because we all grew up with this 20th century education that hasn't changed a whole lot. And so my goal is to be able to help equip people with their natural learning abilities, unleash it so that they could really soar. Cape not required.
Right. And I know I heard you. It was a super dark period in your life. I'm not blind to that. But the fact that you were able to double down, be so intense, read so many books, and begin a journey, and then again, you knock yourself unconscious, you wake up in the hospital, at so many points away, all the other people who would have been Jim Kwik, they faded away, right? One by one. Maybe one person makes it past the first milestone, but not the second, not the third, not the fourth. How have you pushed past pain so many times? What drives you?
Okay, so when I woke up in that hospital bed, that was that Matrix moment where you take the red and the blue pill.
Oh,
yes. It's the difference between being a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer, think about the function. It reacts to the environment, it reflects what the environment's giving it. And so that person is reacting to the weather, it's reacting to the economy, reacting to their coworkers or their customers and such. And we're all affected by that in some way because we're human. But the difference between a thermometer and a thermostat is sets a standard, right? And then the environment changes and raises. It sets a vision, it sets a goal, a mission, and the environment changes around it. And I think that's really what leadership is. It's taking the invisible and making it visible. I talk about H cubed, that you could visualize things in your head and affirm things and set goals in your head, but if you're not acting with your hands, let's say you set a goal for your health or your business or your relationship, but you're not doing things about it, I think what's missing is the second H, which is your heart, right? The emotion, the energy, emotion, that's really the why, if you will. I was reflecting this morning on the Matrix, and you think about the three main characters. You have Morpheus, which is the mind, right? Dreaming and the mind and such. He's always talking about freeing your mind as being the key. And you have Neo, who's the action person, right? He's the action hero. And what Trinity is she's the love, right? And she's the emotion. And you need that. You need the emotion to be able to have congruency from your head to your heart to your hands.
That's pretty amazing. And I've actually never thought of the Matrix like that, those three archetypes. That's pretty powerful.
When I do these demonstrations that you've seen on YouTube or on stage where I memorize a room full of people's names or 100 words forwards and backwards or numbers like that, I always tell people I don't do this to impress you, I do this to express to you what's really possible. Because the truth is every single person here could do that also, regardless of their age or their background, their career, their diet, their level of education, or so on. It's just we weren't taught that. If anything, we were taught a lie. We were taught a lie through marketing and media and just people who care but just don't want to lose us. Or get our feelings hurt and get our hopes up, is that somehow our potential is fixed. Sometimes somehow our intelligence is fixed, our learning is fixed, our memory is fixed, and we've discovered more about the human brain in the past 3 decades than the previous 3,000 years. And what we know, it is incredible, what people could do.
Talk to me more about responsibility. So there's obviously the very famous quote from Spider-Man.
With great power comes great responsibility.
And then your incredibly empowering flip of that.
Yeah, when Stan mentioned that his favorite superhero was Iron Man.
Stan Lee, being a Stan.
Sorry,
Stan,
the creator.
Stan. Me and Stan.
So we're at dinner and I asked him who his favorite superhero was, and he says Iron Man. And he says, who's mine? I said Spider-Man, and he says, without a blink, he says, with great power comes great responsibility. And I was like, that's really true. And my mind, how it thinks, it always does the critical thinking and opposites and stuff. And I was like, Stan, the opposite is also true. With great responsibility comes great power. With great responsibility comes, when we take responsibility for where we are, we have great power to make things better. But when we give up our responsibility, we have no power to do anything about things.
If you guys were just as impacted by that as I was, right now I want you to tweet out to both Jim and I and just send that quote. With great responsibility comes great power. Dude, that to me, that's so powerful. And it's said in a way, so I have a way of saying that I think is so much less effective than what you say. I will always say it with a registered trademark above it, but that is so powerful. So what I always tell people is, essentially blame yourself, right? Like, I take blame for everything that goes wrong in my life. Everything. It doesn't matter what's happening, what it is. I tell the famous story that I tell is about a meteorite. If a meteorite hit my wife while she was in London in the bedroom that she grew up in, I only blame myself. Why? Because I want the responsibility. I want the power that comes with that. I don't want to give it up. I don't want to be powerless. Because when I first posted a blog article about that, and I used a slightly different analogy, it was being hit by a drunk driver. And I said, that would be my fault. People went nuts. And I was like, okay, wait, like I am not explaining myself well, because this is the most powerful thing I've ever learned, which is by taking extreme ownership of my life, by saying everything in my life is because of choices I've made. So if it's something good, I've made good choices. If it's something bad, I've made bad choices. Now, why is that important? Because I can change. I can change the bad choices, right? I can make a new choice and get a new reaction. And because I own my life like that, my life looks incredibly different. I was telling somebody the story today of when I was living in London, and I was saying, it was this incredibly dark period in my life, because she's like, I've never heard you tell this story before. And I was like, yeah, it was a pretty gnarly period in my life. I was basically a stay-at-home boyfriend. I didn't have a job, and my only goal was to greet my then girlfriend warmly as she came home from making money. We were living in her mom's house, and I just needed to make her a sandwich, right? And it was like, I didn't make use of the time. It was terrible. It could have been like, if I had been working my ass off and one beautiful gift that I was giving to my wife was to make her that food, that's awesome. But when it's like you allow yourself to just zone out all day and not make use of this time, it really, really became this just low point in my life. And she was saying, man, you got to tell the stories, like, because people can't see that was pre-mindset change, and my life now is post-mindset change. It's not like I was born into a family that had money and they taught me how to be a good entrepreneur. It wasn't like that, right? So to your point about anybody can make these changes, you just have to realize that with great responsibility comes great power. Jim, that's really fucking good, dude. I like that. Thank you for that. So you were saying earlier that there's this overwhelm, right? Like there's so much data flying. And I don't know if you have any insights. For me, here's what I do. So I don't feel a sense of overwhelm. I'm so grateful for the amount of data that's coming out, and because the Matrix gave me the perfect way to understand how to utilize that data, which is, okay, I need to fly a helicopter right now, awesome, let me get that skill, right? So it really helps solidify in my mind that skills are meant to be acquired in service of something, right? So I think the big problem people have is they don't know what they're trying to accomplish. Now, if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, suddenly it's a wall of information that's like a tsunami. It is so big, it is so hopeless. Have you ever watched the tsunami footage from the one back at the Christmas Boxing Day tsunami? Anyway, there's some absolutely terrifying footage, but there's this one moment where it is a wall of it's like 40 feet tall. I mean, it's just massive. And the way that it's coming, it's not like a wave. It doesn't come like a wave. It is just like a grumbling wall of sea. I don't know how else to explain it. And people are running. And one guy stops, turns, and just lets it hit him. There's no attempt to leave. There was an acquiescence of, this is my fate. I shall do nothing but face it. And while I could get romantic and poetic about meeting your fate, with that kind of poise, the other way to look at it is the hopelessness of something so big that seems so destined to swallow you that you don't even try. And I fear that what makes people feel that way, that it is so hopeless, that there is no point in even trying, that there's so much information, why do anything? They don't have a filter. And people ask the wrong question. What people ask is, Tom, how do I find my passion? Because they want that to be the filter, right? Passion to me is a derivative of something else. And if you know, I think it was Cal Newport who wrote the book So Good They Can't Ignore You, and he really debunks sort of the passion as a lightning rod from heaven. And it starts as just an interest, and that interest grows into something where you desire mastery. And as you gain mastery in converging areas of interest, then that fills you with a sense of purpose and joy and a desire to keep going, and that becomes a full-blown passion. So if instead of asking, how do I find my passion, you just start with the things that you're interested in. What do you want to know about? And then what do you want those skills to be in service of, right? So you're obviously big about giving back. Much like you, the central focus of my life is how I can deliver value to other people. It's what I think about all day. The business is structured around that. This show, to me, is the most natural offshoot of what we're doing on the food side, because Quest Nutrition is about the body, but to deal with the body and not the mind, like, it's to deny the reality of the value that we're trying to deliver, right? So once you know, okay, here's this thing that I'm very interested in, here's a way that I want to deliver value, I now have a filter to know what skills to acquire. Once I know what skills I need in order to deliver that kind of value, then it's not informational overwhelm anymore. Right. It's merely a matter of, okay, that doesn't make sense, yep, this is a piece I need, that doesn't make sense, this is a piece that I need. Have you felt that? Is it something that comes up in your classes?
I find that the people who are most effective, and both effective and efficient, are people who could see through the noise and really get to the signal, be able to separate yourself outside of the metaphor of the matrix, so that you could have clarity of purpose. And I think one of the things that's really powerful also is just a lot of people, they give away their sovereignty and their power first thing in the morning. Like the first thing in the morning, they'll pick up their phone and they'll check everything, because there's the way it's set up, right? They're getting their dopamine fixes, and it's just really rewiring their brain. So it's training them just to be distracted all the time.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
That was so rad. You give up your sovereignty and your power. That's incredible, dude.
And it's tough also because the first hour of the day is, your brain, you're coming out of this delta wave and you're in these alpha, theta, and you're very susceptible to new
Real
information.
fast, because this is powerful. Run people through the brain waves, the different kinds.
I mean, the primary brain waves is you have beta, where you're most awake, like we're at right now. And then on the other side, you have delta, when you're fast asleep. In between, right below beta, is alpha, which is that relaxed state of awareness, which is the ultimate state to be able to learn something and to learn a language in. Think about how many songs that you know, like the lyrics to songs, but how many were you actually, you probably know hundreds, right? If not thousands. How many you were actually trained? Probably very few. You learn them in that kind of alpha state. We learn the best when we don't even realize that we're learning something, right? And then, so that alpha state is where a relaxed state of awareness. It's like the same state we go into when we're meditating, when we're concentrating on our breathing. When what puts in a state? Television. Television puts you in an alpha state, and you know this because if you ever watch somebody watch television, they're so into it. Maybe it's it's their favorite show, or it's sports, and you try to talk to them and they don't even hear you because they're literally entranced. That's an alpha state. But that's the state you're in, just where your conscious mind is set aside and you just become a sponge, which is a great way to learn things, certain things that you program. The third state in between alpha and delta, that state that you're in right before you go to sleep and wake up, that's a theta state. And the theta state, the reason it's important, where alpha information is coming in, theta state information is coming out in the area of creativity. That's your creative state. And so that's the state actually that, for example, Einstein, he was left brain in terms of math and formulas, but really he was the one that said imagination is more powerful than knowledge, because if anything, knowledge is what is, and imagination is what really could be. And why it's important is because sleep is so important for your memory, right? For your brain health. That's when you're clearing out the plaque. That's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. But we live in this age, because we're so distracted and we're multitasking and technology and digital stuff, we're just not getting the sleep that we need. But it's a sleep where a lot of genius comes from. People don't realize this, but Elias Howe created the sewing machine. He actually invented that in his dream. He actually imagined like these natives, they were chasing him with these spears, and at the end of the spear there was a hole, and that's where he thread the needle. And so it's a remarkable thing, your brain, your mind.
Yeah, it's like what Viktor Frankl says, to create that space between the stimulus and the response, right? Once I understood that the response was electrochemical, it's like, oh, okay, well, there are ways that you can disrupt that or secrete different chemicals, and they're all triggered by certain things, oftentimes physiological. Understanding the connection between the brain and the body, if you really want to live a powerful life, to find those connections between the brain and the body, and to find the ways that you can go from the brain to the body, which is a really phenomenal way of manipulating the brain. And I think people always think of psychology or the brain as essentially manifesting all of the body's activities when it's actually not true, right? There's neurons in your digestive tract, for instance. And there's all kinds of things that the body can do to influence the mind. From bad posture will make you feel worse, broad posture, strong posture can actually increase your testosterone levels. I mean, there's just all kinds of little hacks and manipulations that you can do, but most people are just incredibly blind.
Yeah. The tweetable is, as your body moves, your brain grooves. As your body moves, your brain grooves. That people who are more physically active will actually do better on mental acuity tests, focus, memory, and so on.
Yeah, the fact that you can take a physical education class like right before your hardest class and then you'll do better in that class, that to me was really fascinating. And as somebody who absolutely hates working out and only does it because of the brain-body connection, that was a pretty powerful motivator.
They even find that there was a study done in Oxford saying jugglers actually have bigger brains.
Really?
Yeah, a few years ago, that actually you learning to juggle actually build more white matter in your brain.
Let's go back to giving up or not giving up our sovereignty. What's your morning routine look like? How does one avoid falling into the trap of reaching right for the cell phone and letting the world dictate?
I mean, I think, okay, so I like really managing my first hour of the day and the last hour of the day, because it just, that's where I could control. Like sometimes when you go to the office, things are gonna hit you and such like that. But here, when you wake up, instead of reaching for your phone, right? Because first of all, I always keep it, I don't keep the phone actually, and I don't touch my phone the first hour. Because the problem is when you check for your email, for instance, all you're training yourself is just how to respond. You're reacting to everybody else's demands that they have for you, all their requests of the things that they're sending you. And so that's something that I don't want to train my brain to do. I meditate 20 minutes in the morning. You know, I have a full glass of water. I plan my day. I just write down 3 business things that I want to be able to focus on, and then 3 personal things, then that's a win for me. I don't have to go through a checklist of 200 things. If I just do these 3 things, it's a win for me. You know, even Will Smith, he says, if you know, 2 most important things, just run and read every day. Do something physically and something mentally to be able to keep yourself engaged and active to it. There's so many distractions and there's so many enemies that are out there, and it's literally rewiring our brain. Even social media, the challenge is, you know, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything.
What's that?
This is social media depression, because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that, because everyone's is comparing themselves to.
Wow, that's a thing.
Posting. And it's a challenge, but more and more time is spent there. But you mean these devices are created to literally jolt you with dopamine, give you these fixes. And also, the other reason why you want to routine your life that's important is because a lot of people nowadays, in addition to the overload and the overwhelm we all feel from the demands, is something called decision fatigue. And decision fatigue is saying that, latest research is saying that you can only make a set amount of good decisions a day. And then after that, you can't. And so people like, even simply, you've heard that Mark Zuckerberg or Tony Hsieh, they wear the same clothes every single day, the same sweatshirt, the same Zappos t-shirts. And you ask them, not the same, you know, they have their whole wardrobe, 20 of them. But the reason why is because they don't want to waste a decision on what should I wear today when they could be working on, you know, the things that they're most, you know, excited about.
Do you think there really is a finite number of good decisions that you can make in a day?
Okay, so I do believe that after a certain amount of focused effort, people suffer from mental fatigue, and that's where they make more mistakes. You know, that's where people become shorter with their temper. That's where the people make less than the best decisions ever, just because of fatigue and exhaustion, because they've been so focused doing certain other activities and such.
Do you know Mark Divine?
Yeah.
All right, so he's got this concept of 20x, right? You're capable of 20 times more than you think you are. Yeah, that fascinates me.
I think motivation is key. I think it's the key to life. I think it's the key to learning. I think people feel like that if they can't learn something or remember something, they're not tapped into their motivation, you know, because they don't want to. Like even things like names, let's say they're self-admitting that they're really bad with names, but when it comes down to it, they don't really want to remember the person's name, except for they'll remember the names of the people they're attracted to. They remember the names of the people that could be good for business because there's inherent motivation. And so I always tell people if someone's horrible with names, if there was a suitcase of $100,000 cash, if you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet, you're going to remember that person's name. All of a sudden the person's a memory expert, but they didn't use any technique. So it had nothing to do with their capacity or their potential, and it had everything to do whether or not they wanted to or not. And I really do believe that reasons reap results. That's the thing. That if you have enough reasons, you'll get the results, and I think that's one of the keys to learning faster and remembering more.
What motivates you, just in general?
One of my very first students, she was a freshman, I was tutoring her, she read 30 books in 30 days, and I found out her motivation was her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer and was given 60 days to live, and the books she was reading were books to save her mom's life. So for me, it's not about making a dollar, it's about making a difference. Like, I don't really get excited about $1 billion, but 1 billion brains coming online and unleashing their superpowers. And think about the kind of world we live in if we could raise the collective intelligence of the planet. Where are the Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos that are just around, out that could just do amazing things out there. So
yeah, I'm motivated by that same thing, and I know you know Peter Diamandis, who's somebody that's just gotten inside my soul. That man is just an incredible human being, both his public persona and having gotten to know him as a person. Oh my God, he's so real. And what I like about what you're saying there, and something that Peter talks a lot about is, so follow that to the next step, right? What does the world look like when 1 billion new minds, or 2 billion, or however many are currently left without access to real technology and to be a part of the global voice? What does the world look like, right? So let's look at Elon Musk. Let's look at the way that he's shaking things up. He is co-founder of 3 of the most game-changing companies on the planet today, right? Like, the man is actually trying to get people to Mars. Think about that for a second. The car industry and legislators have struggled for decades about what to do about CO2 emissions. What does he do? Revolutionizes the technology, and he makes it cool. He makes people want it. I'm sure I'm going to misquote the exact statistic, but when he made the $35,000 Tesla, I forget the Model 3, thank you, Yonstar, when he made that available for pre-order, it was the fastest selling item in history. Like, that's so crazy, and it's somebody who recognizes the truth of human nature, knows how to plug into it, give them something they want. To your quote, they build value where value didn't previously exist, right? He has built value where value didn't previously exist. Okay, now that's with the whatever 4 or 5 billion people that we have now that have access. What happens when you essentially double that, right? How many more people like that do you find? How many Richard Bransons, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, like people who fundamentally alter our interaction with the world, like fundamentally. People for whom you will miss if they're gone. I never met Steve Jobs, and I was legitimately sad when he died because the things he had given me were useful to me. Like, I don't care whether the guy was a jerk or not. It's totally irrelevant to me. I cared that this thing that I had gave me access to information that I didn't previously have. It allowed me to do things I couldn't previously do. It allowed me to connect with my employees and to connect with, the fans of this show, for instance. It's like, it had a fundamental transformative impact on my life. So now I care about that. So when I'm at my most honest, dude, I'm with you. Like, the thing I am most interested in doing, and the reason that I've started with the body and the mind, is when you start to get people capable of going online and doing those things, you've got to get their body right, because the body is a reflection of the mind. You've got to also address the mind. And if you get them in that positive, sort of self-contained ecosystem, then they're able to really do something. And I just want to live in that world. I want to live in that world where billions of people who are, and look, most of them will do nothing. I'm well aware of that. So no need for the tweets and the emails telling me how most people will fail. I get it. But some portion of them will, and they'll do something so transformative that will never be the same again because of it. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, and I think it starts a lot, with the mind. Our ability to solve problems, our ability to think, our ability to innovate and invent things. And our world is a reflection of that. And so I think it's an amazing thing, because that's the other part. Because part of, when you're talking about the matrix, it's freeing yourself from the shackles of that learned helplessness that a lot of us grew up with. What did we learn early on that doesn't really have a lot of weight now that's holding us back in the area of the life that we're struggling the most?
That's a super powerful question. Tell people what you think about questions.
I really do believe questions are the answer. I mean, if people have the experience of wanting to change their life, I would start not only with their body, but also the questions that they ask themselves. I believe that ask a new question, you get a new answer. And I think that all the value in the world started at that place. Someone asked a new question about, in business or in a relationship or in the world about putting a person on the moon, a brand new question, and all of a sudden we have brand new answers. And I think that the people that we admire in business that do, like Peter Thiel, or people like going from 0 to 1, they ask a different quality of question and they get a different quality of answer. I think people that read a page in a book get to the end and just forget what they just read, which we are all guilty of. You go back and you reread it and you still don't know what you just read. I think a lot of those people, they're not clear about their outcome of why they read what they're reading. So they're not getting answers. But when your brain is like a magnet, and it'll just start getting answer, because you have part of that brain, they call it the reticular activating system, that determines your focus. Like years ago, I remember my sister would send me emails and postcards with this little pug dog, with the smushed-in face. And I was like, why is she doing that? And then I realized that, it was her birthday coming up and stuff like that. But I just start seeing these pugs in Whole Foods, and I'm jogging in my neighborhood. I see a guy like walking 6 pug dogs and everything, and all of a sudden they start appearing everywhere. And where were they before? They were there, right? But we never paid attention to it because there's billions of stimuli any moment that's hitting us, and primarily your brain is a deletion device. It would go stark mad if it just paid attention to everything that was going on. You would go insane. And so primarily you're trying to filter out stuff. And people filter, based around their beliefs, their identity, their self-worth, their values, and everything. Same thing when you're learning. That's why writing your goals and having, energizing them with emotions is important, because you start seeing answers everywhere. You start seeing opportunity everywhere that's aligned with that goal that you have. And so, same thing when you're reading. When you're looking for answers, all of a sudden in your reading, you're like, oh, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's an answer, and it acts like a magnet and just pulls it in. And you learn best by pulling information in, not pushing it in. That's not how the brain works. It works through not consumption. It works based on creation. Getting involved, rolling up your sleeves. Because here's the other tweetable: is learning is not a spectator sport. Learning is not a spectator sport. It's just like working out. And people see people who read an immense amount of information, right? Or they see people who are just really good with their mind solving problems. And they're like, oh, that person could do it because they're really smart. That doesn't make any sense to me, because that'd be the equivalent of me looking at someone at the gym, someone's bench pressing all this weight. They're like, oh, that person could do it because they're really strong. It's like, no, they're really strong because that's what they're doing. Right? They're doing that on a regular basis. That's why they're showing those kind of results. Same thing with your brain. Your brain acts like a muscle. Obviously it's an organ, but it's like a muscle. It grows stronger with use, but it's use it or lose it. And so many of us are outsourcing our brains to our smart devices. So it's keeping your memory, keeping all this stuff. And so they call it digital dementia. How everyone's all forgetful and absent-minded, senior moments are coming a little bit early. They can't remember simple things conversations, everything. It's because they're training their brain to have everyone else think about it, keep your schedule, all that stuff. So we live in an interesting world of overwhelm and anxiety, and people are still, there's no stress. Their amygdala is so under fire all the time. They're reacting as if a saber-toothed tiger is coming at them. When you're taking time for like white space to be creative, to be able to go for a walk, that's where you're going to create a lot of the innovations. That white space is very important.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
What's your definition of a life well lived?
Oh, a life well lived. Well, for me, I always focus on. I always wish people their lives be full of lots of love, lots of laughter, and always lots of learning. I really do believe the two things that fulfill me the most, because I think it's an individual thing. I think it's growth and giving. I call them grow givers. Where a lot of people are just they're go-getters. They're just trying to take and take and take. But then they could give stuff out, but then they become a martyr because they have nothing else to give. But I think when we grow so we have more to contribute to other people. And I think that leaving the planet a little bit better, someone's life, a little bit better just because you were in it. I think that's a life worth lived.
Awesome. I love it, Jim. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. That was absolutely incredible. I loved it. Guys, you're going to want to look him up. Jim Kwik, Kwik. He is a wealth of knowledge. And the reason that we didn't go into the actual curriculum that he teaches is it's out there and it's amazing. And you can, in fact, where would you want them to go to find the actual curriculum?
Actually, yeah, I have a great training that I like to gift all your friends. It's just how to read faster, how to improve your memory, how to remember names. It would be at jimkwik.com/quest.
It's amazing. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
So go check that out, guys. You're going to see the reason that he's become so popular, the reason that he has the photos with the just amazing bevy of people that he does is because he always leads with value, and he's always asking himself in any exchange, how do I deliver more value than I get? And because of that, and because of the astronomical results that he gets from the way that he teaches and the methods that he's created, people just draw him deeper and deeper into the world, and he's ultra connected for a reason, man. That's why I said in the intro, it's all about results. His system gets results, and that's why people keep coming back and back and back. The more you dig into him, the more that you're gonna be amazed by what you find. But the one thing that I want you to remember that you heard here, don't give away your sovereignty, man. That hit me so hard, I can't even tell you how long that's gonna stick with me. That's utterly amazing, and I think so many people give away their sovereignty, whether it's through email, which you've heard me talk about that before, or whether it's just picking up your device and waiting for other people, man. You have got to take ownership of your life. With great responsibility comes great power. I love that. With great responsibility comes great power, man. When you own it, when you take that responsibility on, when you acknowledge that nobody is going to move your life forward but you, suddenly you can accept that the state of your life, good or bad, is because of the choices that you've made, and at any time you can make different choices. He started with a learning disability, didn't let them hold him back. He started with a learning disability and became the foremost expert on learning. You gotta love that. You can do anything you set your mind to, guys, so go out and kill it. Jim, thank you so much for being on the show, my friend. That was absolutely brilliant. Guys, until next week, be legendary. And if you haven't already signed up, sign up. This is a weekly podcast. This is a weekly YouTube show, and you can find me at @TomBilyeu. All right, guys, thank you so much, and take care.